I thought I was too successful for my husband. Once I started making double his salary, so I walked away without looking back. Now I'm watching him thrive, move on, and live his best life without me. I've been sitting on this for a while, partly because I didn't think I needed outside opinions, and partly because I assumed the answer would be obvious. Lately, though, the reactions I've gotten from people around me have made me question whether I'm missing something, so here I am. I was married to Evan for 11 years, no kids by choice on both sides. We agreed early on that neither of us wanted children, and that was never a point of conflict. On paper, our marriage worked for a long time. We were stable, respectful, and generally aligned on values like honesty, independence, and not living beyond our means. Where things changed was trajectory. When we met, I was early in my career, and Evan was already established in his. He works in a field that's meaningful, but not lucrative. Teaching, nonprofit work, creative projects. The kind of work people praise morally, but don't actually want for themselves. At the time, I admired it. He supported me through graduate school, through job changes, through long hours and relocations. I won't deny that. He was kind, patient, and encouraging. I don't think he ever once made me feel guilty for prioritizing my career. Over the last few years, my professional life accelerated fast. Promotions, bonuses, equity. I'm now making more than double what Evan earns. That shift didn't happen overnight, but once it did, it changed the dynamic in ways I didn't expect, and honestly, didn't like. I started noticing how often I was the one paying for things, planning things, driving decisions. Not because Evan asked me to, but because I could. And while that sounds generous in theory, in practice it made me feel like I was carrying the weight of the relationship. I was the one with options, leverage, momentum. Evan was comfortable. He liked his job. He liked his routine. He liked being where he was. At first, I told myself this wasn't a problem. People don't need to earn the same amount to be equals. I know that. I've said that out loud many times. But internally, something shifted. I stopped feeling proud of our balance and started feeling embarrassed by the contrast. Friends would congratulate me on promotions and then ask, half joking, "So is Evan ever going to catch up?" Or they'd comment on how impressive it was that I was the breadwinner. I laughed it off, but it lodged somewhere unpleasant. I started seeing Evan through a different lens, not as a partner on a parallel path, but as someone stationary while I was moving forward. I won't pretend I handled that gracefully. I started making comments I framed as honesty, about ambition, about wanting equal footing, about how it mattered to me to feel like my partner matched my level of drive. Evan never got defensive. That, weirdly, made it worse. He'd say he was happy, that he found his work meaningful. That fulfillment didn't have to look the same for everyone. To me that sounded like settling. I know how that sounds. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was evolving and he wasn't. And over time, that turned into resentment. Not explosive resentment. Quiet contempt. The kind that drains respect one interaction at a time. The breaking point wasn't a dramatic fight. It was a conversation where I finally said what I'd been thinking for months. I told him I felt like I was carrying the relationship, that I wanted a partner who matched my level, that I didn't want to feel like I had to downshift myself to make the marriage feel balanced. He listened. He asked questions. He didn't argue. He didn't try to convince me I was wrong. At the time, I read that as passivity, as confirmation that he didn't have the fire I needed in a partner. Looking back, I can see how much restraint that actually took, but at the time it felt like proof that I was right. I initiated the divorce not out of anger, but out of certainty. I told him I needed more challenge, more parity, more ambition. I expected sadness, maybe bargaining. I didn't get it. Evan was hurt, obviously, but he didn't beg. He didn't try to rebrand himself. He didn't promise to change careers or step up. He accepted it. That acceptance validated me more than I want to admit. It made me feel decisive, strong, self-aware. I told myself I was choosing myself instead of staying small for the sake of comfort. I assumed Evan would struggle, or at least flounder for a while. That assumption made the decision easier. The immediate aftermath reinforced my confidence. My career continued to thrive. I leaned into work, into travel, into social circles where my success was mirrored and celebrated. Dating felt easy on the surface. I was proud of myself for not clinging to something that no longer fit. But then the information started filtering back. Evan wasn't spiraling. He wasn't lonely. He wasn't bitter. He was fine. More than fine. He was social. relaxed, traveling modestly, deeply embedded in a community I'd never fully participated in because I was always chasing the next thing. That shouldn't have bothered me, but it did, a lot. I found myself irritated by how unaffected he seemed, how content, how little my absence appeared to disrupt his life. It introduced a discomfort I hadn't anticipated. Not regret exactly, but unease. If I was the one who outgrew the marriage, why did it feel like he was the one flourishing? I still believe relationships require alignment. I still believe ambition matters. I don't think wanting a partner who matches your drive is inherently shallow or cruel. But I'm being told, directly and indirectly, that I crossed a line, that I conflated money with worth, that I mistook contentment for weakness. From my perspective, I didn't leave because Evan was a bad husband. I left because he no longer felt like the right one. Isn't that enough? Aren't we allowed to want partners who operate at our level? So that's my question. Is it really wrong to want a partner who matches your success? Or are people just uncomfortable with a woman walking away once she realizes she's outgrown the dynamic? Because from where I'm standing, I didn't abandon anything valuable. I moved forward, and yet, I can't shake the feeling that something about this doesn't sit as cleanly as I expected. Update 1. I didn't expect to be back here, but a lot has shifted since my original post, and not in ways I anticipated. I read most of the responses, including the ones that irritated me, and while I don't agree with everything people said, I can't pretend nothing landed. The first thing that really destabilized me was how well Evan is doing. I don't mean surface level, he's okay. I mean he is genuinely thriving. I started hearing it through mutual friends at first. Someone mentioned he'd been recognized at work for a program he'd been developing for years. Another said he seemed lighter, more social, more at ease. He'd always had friends, but now he was hosting dinners, traveling for conferences, collaborating on projects that actually mattered to him. None of it was flashy. No luxury vacations or status upgrades, just a life that looked settled and intentional. I hated how much that bothered me. I'd assumed without really examining it that I was the stabilizing force in our marriage, that my income, my drive, my structure were the things keeping us afloat. Seeing Evan function not just fine, but better without me disrupted that story in a way I wasn't prepared for. I kept telling myself it was temporary, a post-divorce glow, but months passed and nothing collapsed. If anything, he looked more himself. Then I found out he was dating someone. I didn't hear it from him. One of our mutual friends mentioned it casually, the way people do when they assume you already know. She described the woman as kind, grounded, involved in similar nonprofit work, not ambitious in the way my circle would define it, not status-oriented, apparently very warm. The implication, unspoken but obvious, was that they made sense. That's where the anger kicked in. It wasn't jealousy in the way people usually frame it. I didn't miss Evan romantically. I didn't want to reconcile. What infuriated me was how easily he seemed to slot into a life that didn't revolve around me. I'd expected some lingering imbalance, some evidence that I'd been the engine. Instead, I felt replaceable, and that was new territory for me. Meanwhile, my own life started to feel oddly hollow. On paper, nothing was wrong. My career continued to advance. I was doing well financially, better than ever. I dated mostly men who were on my level in the way I used to define it. Executives, consultants, founders. Conversations were polished, transactional, and oddly competitive. Everyone was impressive. No one felt grounding. I realized how much emotional regulation Evan had been doing without me noticing. He was the person who listened without turning everything into a performance. He didn't keep score. He wasn't impressed by titles, which used to irritate me, but now just felt rare. Without that presence, my days were louder and thinner at the same time. Achievements landed and evaporated. Socially, the narrative started to shift too. At first, people were neutral. Sometimes people grow apart. You have to do what's right for you. But as time went on and Evan continued to do well, the framing subtly changed. He was finding himself. He was really flourishing. I was the one who left. No one said it outright, but I could feel the judgment in the pauses, the way people stopped asking follow-up questions about my love life. I tried to reassert my original logic. I reminded myself why I left. I told myself compatibility matters, ambition alignment matters, respect matters, and that's still true. But the logic that once felt airtight started to feel brittle. It didn't comfort me the way it used to. Then Evan sent me a message. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't emotional, it was infuriatingly measured. He said he'd heard I was struggling with how things ended and wanted to be clear, kindly but firmly. He explained that during our marriage, he often felt reduced to a supporting role in my life, not a partner. That the ring conversation, the comments about levels and provider energy weren't isolated moments, but part of a pattern where his value was constantly being measured against my trajectory. He said leaving hurt, but staying would have meant shrinking himself to fit my hierarchy. I wanted to dismiss it. I wanted to argue that he was reframing the past to protect his ego, but I kept rereading it, because something about it felt uncomfortably accurate. I started replaying moments I'd minimized before, the jokes I made in front of friends about being the breadwinner, the way I'd framed my work stress as more legitimate than his, the times I'd talked about carrying us when he was doing emotional labor I didn't even count. I'd thought I was being honest. Now I'm not sure I wasn't being contemptuous. That realization didn't come with instant remorse. It came with irritation, then defensiveness, then exhaustion. I don't like the idea that I misread humility as lack of worth. I don't like confronting how much of my self-esteem was tied to being the impressive one. I especially don't like acknowledging that part of what made Evan attractive to me early on was how much he believed in me, and how uncomfortable I became once I no longer needed that belief to survive. I still don't think wanting an ambitious partner is inherently wrong. I don't think money is irrelevant in relationships, but I'm starting to see that I conflated ambition with dominance and compatibility with hierarchy. Evan wasn't intimidated by my success. He just didn't organize his life around it. I did. What's destabilizing is realizing how much of my identity was comparative. Being ahead gave me orientation. Without that dynamic, without Evan occupying the lower rung I pretended didn't matter, I feel unmoored in ways I didn't expect. I'm not looking to get him back. He's moved on, and honestly, I don't think he'd trust my motives even if I tried. This isn't about reconciliation. It's about reckoning with the fact that the version of success I chased might have cost me something real, and that cost didn't show up as failure. It showed up as isolation. I thought success would elevate me. I didn't realize it would isolate me. Final update. I didn't plan on writing a final update, but enough time has passed that the shape of this is clear now. Not fixable, not open-ended, just clear. Evan is engaged. I didn't hear it from him. I saw it in a photo someone else posted, a mutual acquaintance I hadn't spoken to in months. No big announcement, no caption about soulmates or destiny, just a candid shot at what looked like a small gathering. Him smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years, her hand visible with a simple ring. It took me longer than I'd like to admit to recognize what I was looking at, because part of me still assumed I existed somewhere in the margins of his life. I don't. That realization hit harder than the divorce itself. The divorce had felt like a decision. This felt like confirmation. He didn't win post-divorce. He didn't transform into some upgraded version of himself to spite me. He just continued living in a way that made sense to him, and eventually someone joined him in that life. I was never required for that to happen. That's the part I'm still sitting with. I started therapy a few months ago, not because I wanted redemption or reconciliation, but because I couldn't keep pretending the discomfort was just jealousy or ego bruising. My therapist doesn't let me hide behind language. Every time I say standards or compatibility, she asks me to define what those actually meant in practice, not aspirationally, practically. That's where the reframing started to sting. I've spent most of my adult life equating value with leverage, money, titles, upward momentum. Those things worked for me. They still do, professionally. But I carried that framework into my marriage and treated it like objectivity. I told myself I wanted an equal. What I actually wanted was someone whose existence reinforced my own importance. Evan didn't do that once he stopped needing me. He was never intimidated by my success. That was a projection I used to justify my contempt. He was secure. He knew what he wanted from his work and his life, and it didn't revolve around status metrics I cared about. When I surpassed him financially, the imbalance I felt wasn't about fairness. It was about power. I couldn't tolerate not being the axis around which the relationship turned. That's not something I'm proud of, but it's accurate. I reached out to Evan once after learning about the engagement. I told myself it was about closure, which is a convenient word people use when they want emotional access without accountability. I didn't ask to meet. I didn't apologize theatrically. I sent a measured message acknowledging that I'd been reflecting and hoped he was well. He responded politely, briefly, and with finality. He said he appreciated the thought, but he was genuinely happy, settled, and focused on the life he was building. He wished me well and asked that we keep distance moving forward. There was no anger in it. no bitterness, just boundaries. That response did more to dismantle my remaining defenses than any argument could have. He didn't need validation from me anymore. He didn't need understanding. He didn't need to be seen by me. Whatever version of him I thought I'd outgrown had long since outgrown the version of me that needed to feel superior, to feel secure. The hardest part has been realizing how comparative my self-worth was. I didn't just want success, I wanted contrast. I wanted to be the accomplished one, the driven one, the one who had risen. Without someone below me in that hierarchy, I didn't know how to orient myself emotionally. That's not Evan's fault. It's not even something he inflicted. It's something I built and then mistook for confidence. I still believe ambition matters. I still believe alignment matters. I'm not rewriting myself into someone who thinks money is meaningless or that relationships should ignore practical realities. But I am accepting that I used ambition as a proxy for dominance and compatibility as a justification for control. Evan didn't fail to match me. I failed to respect a version of partnership that didn't revolve around hierarchy. There's no reunion coming. I'm not asking for one, and even if I did, it wouldn't be fair. Evan is building a life that doesn't include me, and I don't get to disrupt that because I finally understand what I lost. Insight isn't currency. It doesn't buy access. What I'm left with now is quieter and less flattering than the narrative I used to tell myself. I left not because Evan lacked drive, depth, or contribution. I left because I needed to feel elevated, and being with someone who was content without competing with me made that impossible. That's a harder truth than "we grew apart," but it's closer to reality. I don't regret choosing myself in the sense that I don't believe people should stay in relationships that feel corrosive, but I do regret how narrowly I defined worth and how easily I dismissed something stable and generous because it didn't inflate my ego. Success didn't make me more discerning. It made me more brittle. I'm still successful. I still lead teams, make decisions, move fast, but I'm learning to sit with the fact that success doesn't automatically translate into depth, and ambition doesn't guarantee compatibility. Evan didn't lose me. He outgrew the version of me that needed to feel above someone to feel secure.